Good evening, good evening. Hopefully everybody is okay. It looks like we do have sound. It looks like everything should be okay. Let me clear off the screen so I can see if anybody's hollering no sound. It looks like I do have everything okay. One more second here. I didn't get home today. We had some things we still are trying to take care of. We did have an issue, well, 3 issues right in a row starting Sunday, really late Sunday. I haven't had a video up since Sunday, if you haven't noticed. I had somebody post videos for Patreon and YouTube membership here. So there's a new video that went up real early this morning. It should have been up like Tuesday, but with everything going on here on this end, and that's not even counting the issue with the garbage and all the other stuff here. Anyway, some of you know my son has a heart issue and things like that, so I'm not going to get into big details. I have some medical concerns, obviously, at this point, too, which I've talked about before, including the issues with my vision and constant headaches, and among other things. But anyway, things are okay at this point. So just to give you a shout on that, because I do get a ton of comments and questions and a lot of thoughts and prayers, too. So maybe I don't say it enough, but the folks who I talk to directly know how grateful, at least I hope everybody does, how grateful I am for all the kind support in doing this. Things happen, and I can't control them, and neither can anybody else. I've always been very understanding of stuff like this, especially with employees and stuff. Wherever I worked, I've heard just horrifying stories from employees and stuff, and probably one of the worst ones was a 15. I know I hate to get into this. I'll just shoot this out real quick, but there's always a brighter side. You're always blessed, even if bad things happen to some extent. One of the girls that was a server for me, not a server, she was what is it called? A host, and this was at Applebee's. I won't give any names or anything else like that, but she was, I don't even want to say this, but her father was doing stuff to her. We'll just put it that way. I'm not going to say anything specific, and she came to me. Oh my gosh, that's one of those things you never want to be involved in. And anyway, you do what you can to help people. I've heard a lot of really bad stuff and personally brought up to me and stuff. Anyway, long story short, I don't want to get into that right now, but we're on the right path. Things are going okay. Just some future concerns, but that's about it. I'll be back up to normal. Those in Patreon, as I said, there's a video that was up early this morning. I don't know what time it went up, but I know it was up before 9, I want to say, or somewhere in that time frame. It's a longer one. It's almost 40 minutes. It was the last section of the last two-part series. So that's around 2 hours, I think, all told, of just that one topic for you there. Same thing, you'll see the similar video in the YouTube membership as well for those in there. I still have not finished all of the community posts, but I've answered everybody's email. I had a lot of emails in there, so I took my time and I've been working on it, and I try to get everything caught up before the show, but I will go back to the community tab and at least get the older ones, if not all of them. There's a bunch today. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Again, perfectly fine for those in Patreon. It just takes me a little longer sometimes, and we have been pulled out to deal with a few other things, non-work related, personal and medical and stuff, but anyway, let's move on from here. Got a lot of folks in house already. Conversation today, we're going to talk about things that probably you shouldn't do depending on your business, things that are risky enough where it could put you in the red in your business. Obviously, if you're in the green, it means you're making money. If for those of you who are new into this, in the red is a term I've used for years and years, and a lot of people may not have heard that. I know that may sound odd for some of you, but if you're not in the industry or business or haven't done, financials, it might not be something you've heard before. But anyway, but with stuff going on and your business and taking chances, I guess risk management may be a good area for this discussion. This is more along the lines of things that you should never risk. Now, I get asked dozens of times a day sometimes, believe it or not, if I have a certain video up or a bunch of people YouTube showed a video from a year or two ago, and all of a sudden I get bombed with a bunch of questions on the same type of things and comments and stuff. Cross-listing. Let's shoot this one out there first, because I promised myself and someone else I would address this issue. Everybody wants to know, or a large chunk of people asking cross-listing. This site, that site, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're on one site now and you're going to go, let's do cross listing. How is that going to help me and all this other stuff? If you've only got a few hundred items up and your sales are not super hot, you're not super great items out there, there's a learning curve to cross list. There's a learning curve to understand how the other site works. There's a time factor in there. We've been working on it for a few years now. If you've been in my Patreon, you know I was already there. I've shown the page in the past. I've shown, you know, my Shopify internals and stuff in older videos and stuff. I don't do certain things at certain times of the year. Cross-listing would be a perfect example of something that if you're new, you're just starting off, you should probably, in my opinion, may not be the right choice for everybody. If you got really hot items that sell and you've got a nice assortment of stuff coming in constantly, cross-listing would probably be for you. Or if you're a bigger store and you've been on for a long time, cross-listing, I would say almost 100% would get you some more sales, even if it's only a 30% increase. If you're doing 100K now, that's 130,000 if it's only 30% increase or so. So the bottom line is, though, when you've just got a few, you're going to be spending a lot of time figuring out the other site. Charges, fees, how to list, how to do everything. If you're going to sync, use a sync, a cross-listing app that syncs, you're going to need to understand how that works. So you're not having a number wrong in the wrong spot where even if you run out of one, it's not going to make 0 on the other sites and all this other stuff. The biggest recommendation, though, that I'll tell you right now, just on syncing and cross-listing in general, don't do a cross-list of anything through any app or anything else like that unless it syncs. If it doesn't sync, it's going to get you in trouble. You are going to miss an item that sells on one site that you forget to take down on other sites that you're cross-listing to. It happens all the time. I've got one that I just talked to just today about this exact same thing. That's not even the person I told I discussed this with, but that just happened to somebody else who reached out to me on how to fix it. You know, there's not a good fix for it. You double sell something. You got one of them, but you sold 2 of them because you forgot to pull it down from somewhere. That's on you. The negative feedback, if you get one from canceling an order, is on you. I know people say, well, just cancel due to buyer's address and stuff. I don't cancel for wrong reasons. I know there's a lot of people who just cancel trying to save their account and go, you know, that. But eBay, you know, at some point may wonder, or, you know, there may be some questions, or that buyer may complain to eBay because they really wanted that item and you didn't tell them, or whatever the case may be, and it's going to ding you. They might slap your account and your sales might dive. They may put, you know, a couple negative checks on there for violating policy. They may not even tell you. Who knows? They don't have to tell you. So anyway, don't put fault. If you messed up, you know, own it. That's what I do. It's hurt us once or twice. It was my stupid fault years ago when I messed up an order or something. I don't remember the whole story, but it's been a while since I had this. But I did get one. I couldn't get it removed because I screwed up. I wasn't going to stick and use the wrong option because I wanted to be truthful about it. You know what that did for me? I looked at that every day, that ding on my account. Every day, every minute when I'm on there, I can see it. I'm always looking at it. And I know because we look at our feedback all the time, constantly throughout the day. And that was a motivational factor for the next 90 days to do everything I can to fix any situation. If the situation where I got that ding happened and I needed to look through all my listings, that's what we did as well. I mean, everything I could do to get around that. But anyway, cross-listing is a danger for a lot of you if you don't know what you're doing or you're not actually syncing. You know, and I'm not saying there's a lot of people who do it just fine, but if you're new, it's very easy. We've done it. When I originally started to cross-list, I've actually missed taking some items down. Couple of them on HIP and things like that when we first went on HIP because I didn't realize delays and all this stuff. So we listed some items right away and I didn't think to take something down right away. They sold almost immediately on both sites. It was a hot item. I didn't know it. So the end of the story was, you know, that's going to happen if you don't direct sync. Meaning whatever you're using to cross-list to another platform should be able to sync it as well. Now, those in Patreon, I've called out a new name of a new app that somebody came out to me. I have heard back from them. I will address another app in Patreon first because everybody there has asked a lot of questions on this. It's an app that's supposed to be as easy as using Shopify, but you can map and sync by titles is what I've been told and understand. Again, I'm not 100% sure fully because I want to try it and see, but it does look like you could sync by your titles. If you can sync by your titles to Shopify through a third-party app, that means that it doesn't matter if you end in self-similar at all. Everything will sync. You've got two options to get a good sync from one platform in another. Custom SKUs or your titles. If you can sync, again, none of my titles are the same. Even if I have the same item up, I've got a different storage bin or whatever, or I've just changed the quantity. I do end in self-similar religiously. It's helped us out a lot. I'm going to touch on that too because I've come up with some other stuff. I'm not coming up with this, but I'm going to give you some results, I guess I should say. And again, I'm going to reach out to, I don't want to holler at a name, but somebody else who we've been going back and forth and discussing it. A couple more people tomorrow too that I'm already set to talk to. I talked to a fairly nice group of people, a smaller group, but I talk very extensively on what's going on, what's the methods are, and I get updates on what they're at and all this other stuff. It's something you do, I guess, if you're really into this like I am. I know a lot of other sellers may not feel need or whatever, but I think that helps me because I hear stuff that they try and I shoot stuff off. If I figure out something, they're the first ones to hear it every time. I can tell you without a doubt because I usually don't just throw a video together or something until I've tested it for a long time because I don't want to say something if it's not really working for me. And anyway, for me, these tests are avoiding my risk. They're giving me all that stuff. If you're not testing something before you roll it out and say, hey, it's going to work because I did it once and everything was great. I test all this stuff out and stuff as well. But there'll be a video out shortly. But this other site, apparently it's moved up really quickly because of its abilities. Pricing wise, obviously there's a price factor in any cross list that you use. I would rather use a third party any day than some little app. Just straight off the bat. I'm not trying to pick on any specific one, but I've done this for a very long time. The people I talk to personally with long, huge conversations have done it for a very long time too. And the end result is you want a sync that's automatic. If you want to grow and get bigger, you may not need it right away. If you only got a few hundred, you're cross-listing, you may not need it. But you may not even need to cross-list if you've only got a few hundred listings to begin with. It's just like in the old days, when we were running 3 full-fledged, big, huge sites just on eBay alone because it was cheaper that way because of the way they build. That helped us eliminate costs and, but there's always some crossovers and there's always issues with that. You can't sync one store to anyway, long story short, you've got to pay attention to what you're doing. You've got to use good, solid sync or cross-listing apps. Whatever you're using. Programs, I would rather use a site or a third-party specific app other than some little tiny app or something that doesn't really do a whole bunch other than copy and paste or cut and paste. And again, that's always a risk. It's always a risk. If there's no direct sync and you've got your stuff on 3 and 4 sites and you're selling a bunch of stuff or you weren't selling them and all of a sudden you are now, if you list 10 items in a day or 10 items sell a day, you're going to have to take those 10 items down from maybe 5 different other sites. That day, right away. If they're hot items, you just list them and they sell, and you just cross-listed them on 5 other sites, you're instantly wasting time to go to the other 4 sites that's on, and you could have an opportunity where you go, I'll just wait. They just listed. What's the chances of them selling? You forget about something. I hear that every day constantly. It's a constant factor where someone sold something twice. They sold it on one site and they forgot to take it down from another site. I've got a routine. If it's a site that isn't directly synced, because we're still doing some of the smaller sites without a direct sync, or there's a sync issue. HIP is a perfect example. For HIP sync, if you sell it on eBay, it removes it from HIP instantly. So you have nothing to worry about that aspect. HIP's the lesser of the two evils, so as long as it doesn't happen on eBay, you should be fairly good. So with HIP, you have to just download a little file and then just upload it to eBay from the listings tab in your hub, and it instantly changes the quantity down to 0. So I mean, it's an easy task if you're selling a bunch of items on HIP, or on any of the platforms with direct sync at least. But Bonanza does a direct sync and stuff like that. I haven't used Bonanza in years. Everybody I know has maybe sold one item there, and for me, it's just not worth the learning curve. I don't care if it's free or not. It's just something that I would have to check every day of my life, at least spend a minute on, times 365 or more, because you want to check to make sure stuff's sinking and all. And so you'd have to spend time on there. If you're only selling one item a month or one item every 2 months or once a year, it's just not worth your time, because you're spending more time to sell one single item than you're spending anywhere else, and that would just be a waste. It's a risk. It's a risk of wasting time, and time is money. I don't know. I've already got I think I might even be past where I can see the top. No, I guess I can see. Wiggy Q, how are you doing? Well, very, very, very nice of you. Thank you very kindly. I think I commented on one of your posts too. You had a comment on, oh shoot. Sometimes I'm terrible on names, but I just made a comment on one of your posts, and I can't remember what the question was now. Darn it. No, it was 5 days ago because it was on the weekend, but with all the stuff going on, I'm a little behind on, as I said. Are you bizarre? Well, Hulk smash. Yeah, somebody was just watching, the last Hulk movie that I personally saw was 2000, I don't even know when it was, 2003, 2009. Our kids were small. I don't even remember who the actor was who played the Hulk. I know it was all digital or something. Anyway, it was the oldest one I can think of in the modern day age. I don't see Marvel movies anymore, or superhero movies at all anymore, honestly. My last favorite superhero movie was the Dark Knight trilogy, and I like Blade. I watched all the Blade the other day, but anyway. Let's see, where we at? Jackie Jack Enterprises. Well, good to have you in. Thank you very kindly. I see a dog as your avatar. Our dog's name is Jack, so we say Jackie Jack and stuff. The Jackster. You didn't let Jack down, huh? You might see him run down here at some point. Who knows? If the thumb gets replaced, it'll be an okay. Yeah, if you're enjoying, just please slam that thumbs up in here. I know I'm terrible on saying stuff like that. The Old Man's Picks, how are you doing? Good evening, good evening. Brenda Attree. Is Jack over there?
Yeah, I can't get him to come down.
That's the wife in the background. She's got Jack over here somewhere. Hey, Artie Mike, how are you doing? I just dropped you an email, too. I appreciate your comments and thoughts for sure. Just FYI, it's I gave you a good explanation. I just wanted you to know what transpired. But hey, Jeff, Mr. Loftus in house. There he is. Come here. Let me get you. Oh, this is Jack. I'm sorry. He's one. I don't know how to describe it. He's just an incredibly cool dog, I have to say. Look, can you see? Look. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like all the lights, but he's usually like all over the place. He got his nails trimmed today earlier, so okay, buddy. This is our rescue dog. He probably won't want to leave. Oh no, mom's over there. Sorry, let me go back to the screen here. That's Jack. Jack's adorable. He's a lovey dog. He's a lap dog. Unless you're a stranger in our house, then we've got to lock him up. He's really protective of what he's where he lives at. Hey, Marty, how you doing? Marty Jiminy Flip It here. Another fellow YouTuber in-house I would recommend checking out. I missed waltzing with Crystal. Hey, Crystal, how you doing, Crystal? Hopefully things are going good on your end as well. I don't know how I missed you there. I guess I'm kind of bopping around today. We've been nothing but busy this whole week, and not related to reselling, unfortunately. I do like the hours and diving into eBay and Amazon and Etsy and all that kind of stuff. Let's touch on Etsy for just a second here. Ina covered it very well on e-commerce bites. Etsy. If you're selling more than $10,000, I want to put this out there because the bigger sellers know this, but a lot of the smaller sellers don't. And if you hit that number at $10,000 on Etsy, if you're selling that annually, which doesn't take much if you've got you're building up your store on Etsy, at $10,000 or more, you're required to take part in their off-platform advertising, which means it's 15%, just like eBay. If they click on it 30 days from that point, you're going to pay Etsy 15% of that sale price on there. And you may not even know until after the fact that's even happening. So if you sell on Etsy, make sure you're aware of that. And I know some people could have opted out at some point, but I don't think you can opt out anymore. I did look, and I didn't see any spot where I could do it. So, end of the story is here. Just be careful, because if you're expecting, a 10-15% profit minus Etsy fees, you may get crushed. One of the examples that Ina mentions in there is somebody who made a zero profit because the $15 fee killed their profit on the item. So, and again, if the person looks at it once and 30 days down the road they come back and buy something, you're paying that fee. And it doesn't have to be on the item that they looked at. That's the key, and I think they even mentioned that. I think there's a quote from there. I even went back and looked in at the user agreement on Etsy just to see myself, and it does appear that that's the case. So if that customer is drawn into your items through one single link but buys something else other than the item that they looked at, you still could have to pay that fee on there. So just it's 15%. Laura B. I just read that. So unless I'm wrong or there's some other aspect to it, the quotes in there are 15%, the ones that I saw. Could be wrong, but I did see a comment on that specifically. Hang on, my feed just bopped all over the place. In fact, I think I still have it opened here. Hang on just a second. Let me see if I still have it opened. Yeah, here it is right here. I was just looking at it. Somebody had just brought this up. Hang on, because this is from another site, I think, here. I don't want to quote the wrong number. I know it's 6.5. Yeah, 15. At the end of the clip, he shows that Etsy charged him a 15% off-site ad fee because the customer found his business through an Etsy ad. According to Etsy's website, some sellers can opt out of off-site ads. However, those who make a certain threshold of money off the site do not have that ability. And as I said, I can't remove it off of ours. So I'm just reading a quote from here at 15% straight from. In fact, here's the actual video that they're showing. But this is, I think, on a TikTok. I'm not going to call out the name, but you can look on e-commerce bites, and you'll see links and all that stuff going over this. I did look, and that does appear to be what the numbers are in the whole work. So, again, there could be some other fee from depending on this. I don't know. I didn't dig into the whole thing. It is what it is, and I can't fix it, so I just left it at that. These days, I don't mess with anything extra. If I can't fix it, it's the way it is. I'm not gonna. It's just not worth my time. I got so many better things to do and list and all this other stuff. That's where my efforts go to. More listings overcomes the pitfalls of fees and stuff like that, as far as I'm concerned. Quantity rules the day in our world. Not saying that's the only way. You could, have a couple dozen items and make far more than I ever make. So again, I'm not saying your way is wrong if you're not doing quantity or whatever. You just don't have enough up yet. But for us, quantity rules the day because of what I sell. I don't mind stuff sitting. I don't mind that they sit here for years. Our storage system is mostly risk-free, like 99.9% risk-free. The only aspect is once in a while there's a chance that something could get broken, like a record or something. 78. Other than that, even if the stuff is sat here for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, some of our items have been sitting here, they're still perfectly able to be pulled out. So, that's the only risk factor I worried about. Thank you, Artie Mike, as well. Where are we at? I'm trying to find where I was at. Leland Langford, how are you doing? Joe Samard, good evening, Joe. Hopefully you're doing well. Hey, Bob, I do appreciate your kind words, too, on your post there on Patreon. That was very, very nice, as well as the rest of the folks that left comments, too. If I post something anywhere, with stuff going on, nobody has to, respond. I'm just trying to give an update. I do appreciate it, and I'm not telling you not to, but there's no need to necessarily spend, things happen to everybody's life. It's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. Thank you, RU Bizarre, as well. Stitch It, welcome. Dawson 6211, thank you. Karen Fries, Northeast Indiana. I have been through there once or twice. Matt Jake, good evening. Hey, Stardust Memories, how are you doing? Welcome back in. I like your little Stardust speckles at the end there. That's pretty cool. I do have some avatar. I forgot. Actually, I do got some more stuff. I'll be adding some emojis and stuff for those in YouTube membership. I do have a YouTube membership. I know I don't go on about it, but there is one. I've just started putting videos. I think there's like 19 in there now, and I'll constantly, at least 2 every week, will be added. As soon as I get someone off another project, I'm going to have them upload some videos that have been around for other memberships. So you'll see those probably in 1 week. You might see one every day coming up real shortly here, just to catch up on quantity for everyone. Dark Wolf, good evening. Hey, Daryl. Carolina Picks in the house as well. Good to see you in as well, Daryl. Where are we at? Well, thank you, Marty. Yeah, I'm terrible on the hit the like button stuff. I just kind of get wrapped up into something. Thomas Klein, how are you doing this evening? If you are still selling in HIP, how long does it take for your store to resync after an end and sell similar? They're trying to get me to reactivate my account, wondering if issues are resolved. I never worry about it. I don't even go look anymore because it goes up and then an hour or two later it's right back to where it was. I've never had an issue in the last... I'm trying to be honest. I don't want to give false information, but we've got like 6,000 postcards up on there right now. We sell a lot of postcards, so I think it's a necessity. I just sold a $18 one just before the show on HIP, actually. I don't look at the sync anymore because the numbers are always right where they're at. We've got, just on HIP postcard, I've got 18,700 and some odd listings. They've upped, if you haven't been on in a while, Kelly, they've added on other categories that will auto import from eBay, paper categories and stuff. So we're verging on 19,000 listings on HIP, the HIP postcard itself. There's HIP stamp, HIP postcard, and HIP comic books. So I mean, they've got 3 sites. They did say too in the past, as I've talked to the owner and stuff, I did one promotion thing with them because I've used them for years. I've never had much of an issue other than when the sync died once, and they fixed it within a few hours. That was before I had any contact with them. They weren't fixing it just because I'm who I am or anything like that. It had nothing to do with it. In fact, I just reached out to the help desk. It wasn't even anything else like that. But I don't have any issues with it. The sync with HIP, if you're hooked up with eBay and you're not just directly listing on HIP, which you can do as well, is that the stuff that you sell on eBay automatically is the sync is direct. So as soon as it sells on eBay, it's going to go to 0 on HIP or just disappear, and so it won't be available to sell in the first place. So I've never had any issues with that. I have not double sold anything from HIP. But as I said earlier, you just have to download the little file. If you sell a lot, you can download the file, and it'll instantly download a copy of everything that's sold. And you just go to eBay, click the upload option on the top right above where your listings are. On the listing tab of your hub, it's the 3rd tab over on our screen, and it's literally uploads the file. Save it where you need to save it, and it just instantly takes care of it. I use a lot of the CSV uploads, downloads on eBay these days because we've been doing a lot with Amazon and stuff and CSV files. I'm going to put together a video for Patreon and YouTube membership on how to do that as well. I sell collectibles on Amazon. Postcards, stamps, photos, animation items, records, trade cards, labels, documents, stuff like that, and Amazon is a source for doing that, of course. To Kelly, if you want to get them to maybe give you a better deal, might ask, hey, you give me a month for free to try it out. I bet you they'd do it. Just FYI, Kelly. I can't say they do it to everybody, but if you've already been on their service, I bet you they would do it. So if you do it for a month and it doesn't cost you anything, whoop-de-doo. I have some names of the staff out there, the heads of departments and stuff. I've talked to most of them at one point or another, at least once. So, I mean, they do a pretty good job. Mark, the owner, is actually a collector, which was, he knew his stuff. I talked to him. He knew his stuff. He wasn't just some freeloader who just wants to do this for money. They're into it. He's into it. So, and I like that when somebody's into something and they're not just doing it 100% just for money. The biggest risk factor for a lot of us is corporate greed. I looked at, I know people hate and blame other people for like gas prices, but go look at the profits that they reported for the major gas companies or oil companies right now. You'll instantly know that the reason that the gas prices are so high is greed. Greed from the companies. They made billions of dollars in one single quarter. They're buying back stock with all that money they made to raise the value of their own pocketbooks while everybody else pays more for gas. So, that's the way it is. I can't say I'm happy with the gas prices, but it's just the way it is. I'm not gonna sit there and get into anything else like that. I looked at it. You just look at their quarterlies. All the quarterlies are coming out right now. Look at the third quarter. Look at their numbers. Look at the profit margins these people make, and that goes for in the reselling industry too. eBay is all about money. It's not about the old days when it was a person who started it was into the collectibles, and that's where their idea came from, and that's why this happened. In the early days of eBay, it felt like a tight-knit community. It felt like eBay was one of us, like they were out there to help you, and that's how it was back in the early days of eBay. You really felt like you were part of something, and that it was like the best back then. It was the coolest thing around. Even I loved it. I loved it beyond belief. I would have never wanted to get off or go anywhere else other than eBay back in those days, and that was that way for a while. But competition, greed and everything else, they changed it all up for money to compete with the. Anyway, long story short, I don't want to go rambling on that. I'm not trying to make this political or anything else like that. I look at third quarter. I look at the quarterly results. I've got videos just on quarterly results. So you should all look at the stuff like that if you want to really know what's going on with even eBay and Amazon. Google numbers are down if you didn't see that. Alphabet, they're down so much percentage, and ad revenue on video, all that kind of stuff's down. That's what they're saying and stuff. I have to say I'm thankful that we do reselling, because reselling ad revenue is not down. At least it's not down on my end. So not that we make any big fortune. I couldn't live off YouTube money, but the point of it being is that, you got to pay attention to the numbers on the quarterly to see where things are going. If you're slow in sales and every other platform is down in sales, it's not just necessarily something that's coming after you and eBay's trying to kill you or hurt you or whatever the case may be. I don't see that as the case. I just see there's a lot of concern and worry in the world with stuff going on over Ukraine and stuff like that. But and I'm not going to voice my opinion on any of that. I don't even like to look at the news these days on any side of the news. I don't watch news channels anymore. I just read a few articles and, from specific sources, and there's just too much going on these days. Too much hate in the world, I guess. Donna Francisco, well, thank you. Jack is a rescue dog. We lost our 14-year-old Chihuahua in May. Excuse me, the beginning of May or so, I think it was. We've had Jack since May. The wife's she knows the date by heart. She could probably tell you the time we picked him up. But Jack's been a lifesaver. Jack's a real cool dog. He used to be really bad, not mean bad, but just he was nervous. And anyway, rescue dogs, if you've got the heart and the time and calmness to help out a rescue dog, I always think that's great. We got him from the Seneca County Humane Society. So anybody in Seneca County, we drove like an hour one way just to see if we'd even, he'd be okay. And we had to sit there with him for a couple of hours to get him to accept we took 3 visits to get him. And we sat there once in the room with our other dog, which is not doing so well now. But we sat there, and he eventually warmed up after 5 total hours of just sitting there. He was abused, very much abused, and you can tell he didn't even know what the grass felt like, and no ideas on toys or snacks or anything. It was sad, I have to say. Jack is I think he's a mix of a Jack Russell Terrier and the wife says wiener dog, and maybe some other mix in there. That dog can jump straight off the ground, like, I don't want to, probably about 2, almost 3 feet off the ground with all 4 legs. I've never seen a dog do that. We've got a gate so our oldest dog doesn't walk down the steps. She's got some heart issues and stuff, but And he jumps when I come home, and he'll jump up to the top of that gate. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's hilarious. He reminds me of The Mask, where Jim Carrey's saying, "Go get the keys," and he go gets the cheese, and he jumps. That's what this dog can do. He could be a show dog, I guess. I've never had a dog jump that high straight off the ground like he does. He's on Zoloft, if that tells you something too. We have to go get a prescription for him once a month for Zoloft. He's calmed down though. He's a great dog, I have to say. He's the most loving dog you could imagine for what he's been through. Yeah, I hear you on that, Matt, Jake, for sure. I missed some folks here. Let me pop back up here. Marketplace Boutique. Well, thank you very kindly as well. And thank you, Peddlin' Profits, also. The garbage service, I don't put videos up like that. I think everybody here knows that. And I was basically, they lied to the state's attorney's office, which it like slandered me. It made it look like I'm lying to the state's attorney's office. It made it look like I am making up something to get something out of these people when that is clearly not the case. So again, I really don't like putting up videos like that because I always get hate. And I got some threats on that video, believe it or not. I had to delete a few posts that said some really not so great things on that about me posting that, which I was kind of surprised. I mean, that they admit in the video 100% that I'm telling the truth. And I actually shared that with Dave Yost, which is the Ohio State's Attorney General's office, online as well too. I've talked to them a few times and we went back and forth on this. That letter was sent anyway, there's a letter in there on that posting here. It has nothing to do with reselling, but greed and lies is basically what caused the issue to get it. And had someone been honest with me months ago, none of this would have ever happened. If they would have been truthful, they wouldn't have laughed at me, hung up on me, and just fixed the issue. We could have just moved on instead of me wasting a vast amount of time. But the state's attorney's office was very nice and very helpful, let's just say. So anyway, I don't like dogging somebody. I don't even like dogging eBay unless it's so valid, just because I hate getting the hate mail, in all honesty. It's not something I appreciate at all. I've got so much other better things to worry about, but I've wasted so much time on this at this point, and my name was slandered to the Ohio State's Attorney General's office. I'm sorry, I can't let that go at this point. I can't just say, oh, it's fine that you lied about me and you didn't correct that with the Ohio State Attorney's office. And the person who wrote the letter to the Ohio State Attorney's office doesn't work there anymore. So, they know they messed up. They've already made an offer to us, but, at this point, I've talked to people. I'm not going to just be stupid. They've done a lot of stuff, more so than that. But I just put out there now that somebody's brought it up. But, again, I don't put out videos like that, but I'm privileged, and I'm extremely gracious and thankful for having a voice, because a lot of people don't have a voice, and unfortunately there's so many more people with much more concerns than I have, and it's just, I don't know. I don't like putting videos up like that, to be honest with you. I really don't. I've talked about that before, especially with eBay and the attacks from some of the videos. We got attacked and stuff like that. I've talked to states' attorneys general's offices on many occasions over stuff. So I'm just going to put that out there. That's just, if you're on YouTube, there's always a risk of, having to deal with just BS. And that's what happens a lot, I'm not a big fan and all that stuff. I don't like dogging anybody, but in this case, my name was slandered to the highest government judicial office in my state. They said I was lying, basically. And I'm sorry, that's just beyond what I would ever do or expect. If they were all they had to do was tell them the honest truth. They had an issue, they mixed up the routes, or I was in between a route is what was basically an issue. And all they had to do was tell the truth, and we'll try and fix it. We'll do our best. That's all they had to do. Instead of lying and saying they can't give me money back, even though they didn't pick up for a month, and it's like 25% of the time they pick up. Again, I know I'm rambling. I don't want to talk about that topic. That's got me a lot of grief, because that means cans sit out. It means I'm doing stuff. I get it out. I don't know until after the fact, and then the last time they dumped the cans in the middle of my driveway, they were so mad over the whole issue again. And it's just petty little. They're like Oh, well, I'm not going to go there. Big John, well, thank you very kindly for that 1999 super chat. Again, I don't ask for that, and I do honestly and sincerely really appreciate stuff like that. There's channels that call it out, and I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't even think about it until I see one. Honestly, I'm not looking forward to everybody just giving money for talking. That's not my bag, I guess. Anyway, I know I've rambled a lot today. There's just a lot going on this week. Emotions get high when stuff goes on and all that kind of stuff too. So just FYI, life goes on. We do what we can. Republic Services has been a thorn in my side since February, the first week in February. I'm still going. Let me get off that topic. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Jackie Jack Enterprise, when you're doing descriptions for a bunch of similar items, do you use a broad blanket description using the title to do the work, or tailor description to fit each item better? If I'm listing Christmas postcards, the description's all the same for everyone. For all of my postcards, my description, unless there's something really screwy with the card or some specific one that's out of the range of my description is probably the same for 4,000 of my postcard listings alone. And then the other thousands or whatever are probably the same depending on the category. Some of my postcards are not listed in the postcard section at all, like Militaria, some of my real photos, some of my actor or poets. Some of those are listed many times in different categories. Not just postcards, because sometimes you can sell like an RPPC of like a World War II plane and a dive bomb run or something for twice as much in the Militaria World War II, original or home front or whatever sections. Most of those are publicity stuff for, fundraisers and stuff for the war effort, but I list them there. So all the ones in that section will have the same description. They might be a different description than the ones that are just in, say, postcard section. I don't change much in any of my listings. Most the description box and all of them, the item is usually what I say. I don't say a card. I don't say postcard. A lot of those just now say the item is blah, 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 and it's all the same. It's a generalized statement. Please see the condition box for a better idea on the condition, maybe something you want to use on the bottom. So all of your description blocks are all the same. That would be my personal recommendation. I only change when we do a new listing. I do sell similar from one of my items. I don't use templates on eBay at all anymore because they've disappeared way too many times, or something's missing, or when I go to list, it says there's an error in the template and it doesn't work. So I don't even do that. I just literally pull up an item from the same storage bin or the next one down, and then I pull up a like-to-like item, and then I click sell similar. Again, my items only. I don't do sell similar from anybody else's items ever. Because of meta and all that stuff, there's carryover luggage that's hidden, embedded in some of those sometimes, and I don't want that. You can look at some of the page, look at the page coding itself as well. Anybody can do that. So you can see that there are some baggage that hangs over on some cases. I've even talked about that. Somebody else has talked about that with me before. We got into the discussion, good discussion. We were both on the same side of that one, and we both saw the same thing. So independent of each other. Wasn't like I told them this is what you're looking for and they told me. We both came up to the same conclusion at the same time. So anyway, and again, Big John, I honestly and sincerely appreciate that. The song Big Bad John, I always think about. I know somebody else we call Big John too. The reason I say that, but the title. Let me pop back to that question just for another minute here with Jackie Jack Enterprises. The least amount of stuff you have to change is always the best. If I'm going to list whatever I'm going to list, I don't just list one-offs anymore at all. If I've got a couple of something, I'll probably set it aside for a while, unless it's really like a $1,000 item that I'm going to make, $850 profit after fees or something like that, or whatever the case. I usually just sit it there until I get more of them, because it's usually more time beneficial to do it that way. I'll list all Detroit postcards at the same time. I'll list all Star Wars action figures at the same time. I got some HO scale trains here. I'd list them all at the same time. I'd list all the engines together in a row so I don't have to change stuff, and then switch to the box cars or flatbeds or something, or car hauler. I've got a couple car haulers over there, cars anyway. Whatever I'm listing, I list like-to-like items together, and then all I have to do, and let's put it this way, like if I'm listing like a Victorian trade card or something, I list all the ones with the same date. All the ending of it's all the same. My bin numbers are the same for 30 or 40 listings. All I'm usually changing sometimes, it's a thread card or something. All I'm changing is possibly the local name on it. If I've got, let's say I've got 7 of nearly identical cards, my title would probably be the same for every single one of those, other than I'd add a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4 to each version of that. By adding one single separate digit to your eBay listing title, it is not a duplicate listing, even though the title is basically the same and reacts to a search result the exact same way. So if I'm adding a 2 for the second listing of that basically similar same item, it's a different listing. Even though it's in the same bin number, there's only one digit that changes it to a separate listing. Sometimes I'll want to use a listing title that I've already had for another item. You know, I listed 10 of this item before. I got a couple new ones, but the condition may be different, or a different back mark on like a button or a badge or a pin or a buckle or something, or even like spoons. I get spoons a lot, military Navy spoons and stuff like that. And many times the design is identical, but the back mark, the stamping is different on the back side. So, you know, that's the way to do it. I try to change as little as possible. So if I'm listing something, usually I'm only changing maybe 3 words in the title. The condition is hopefully the same, so probably about 60-70% of the time I don't touch the condition box at all. Size, maybe, if it's like something I'm measuring, I may obviously change that. And then my description box down below is all the same. I haven't touched it. You know, once in a blue moon, if eBay's done some updates, I'll go back in and make sure that the HTML looks okay, you know, that there aren't any scripting issues or anything else like that. You know, eBay's got the 3-part checker when you're going through that. It's right above your description box. Use it. You know, if you haven't done it in a while, you'll probably find some issues with it. Like check out the link. This is a link to, like, you know, your other listings. You can add that drop link in an HTML aspect. I've got saved templates in there too. That's the only place I have anything saved. So you can do the drop-down menu on the advanced option for your description box, and you can add blanket statements that you've already saved. You type them up once, and then I've got, I don't know, 10 or 15. So I use blanket statements. So as I said, I change only a couple words. If I need to change something, it's already saved in the drop-downs for my description box in that listing. All your listings, really. So again, because they're blanket statements for the most part. Yeah, I try to use blanket statements for everything. I may have tears, rips, or wear due to age as is expected or something like that. However, just spend a few moments to think about what you're going to type in there. Type it up once and see how it sounds. Read it through. Show it to somebody if you're not, you know, haven't done this before. And then go with that. And then every listing you do from that point on, use that exact same description box. I would also say don't just put one-liners in there. Put a block down there for those folks who actually do look at your description box. A lot of people from a cell phone may not do it, but it's still good because still probably 65% of traffic is still from a laptop or a desktop or something, other items other than, say, a cell phone. At least from the data I've personally seen, and you can look up yourself as well, too. Hey, Aaron. How you doing, Aaron? Good to see you in house. Hopefully things are going good on your end as well, Aaron. Hey, Michelle. Hey, from Arizona. That's where Republic Service is from. I know that just because I've had to deal with it, but Arizona's nice. I've been out there. I was in Phoenix for a little while. I have a friend who works Fox afternoon television. Used to be. I don't know how much is still done there, but they used to all be done in Phoenix. Phoenix turned into a mini animation mecca at one point, like 10 or 15 years ago. And he's worked out there for a while, though. He does a lot of stuff, though. He works for Fox afternoons or something like that. Cartoon programming and stuff. Thank you, Michelle. Top the Flip, how are you doing? Good to have you in. Yeah, Laura B, I got to that one earlier, and then we bounced around, as I always seem to do, unfortunately. I got a lot, so hang on, let me pop back up to get back to where we were. Got the description. Bo's Garage, how are you doing? Downtown Beantown, Boston in the house. Enjoyed the content. You know what? I loved Boston, I have to say. I've traveled all over this country. Not to, well, yeah, I have been in every state in the continental United States. I haven't been to Hawaii or Alaska, but we spent some time in Boston. We stayed at the House of Seven Gables even 2 nights, which was awesome. We stayed in Saugus and then Peabody. I liked it up there. The best place for antiques back in those days was Brimfield's, and I've talked about it with Annie, who has a channel. I don't know if she's in tonight or not, but I loved Brimfield's. We actually flew in early. Didn't have to be there for 2 days, and I flew in 2 days early just to go to Brimfield's. It just happened to coincide, and we went whale watching off Gloucester. It was just amazing, the rocks and the shorelines, and we went to the state forest. It was just a lovely trip up there, I have to say. Next time I get a chance, we'll probably head up that way again too. And the wife wants to travel, maybe go whale watching again. We loved the whale watching trip we took to. I was sick as a dog, but it was well worth it. Are You Bizarre by Jack? My rescue was abandoned, starving. She found us. Ivy gun shy, hunting dog. Oh, that's lovely. Glad to hear they got somebody who cares, or your dog has somebody who cares. Our dog was, if we didn't adopt him and we had to bring him back or something, they were going to put him down, and that was the sad part. There's no way we were going to let anything happen to him. Once he got into our house, even though we had to train him and for house training and all that stuff, and it was a little bit of a chore for the first month or two, but he fits right in. I have to say, my family's a little out there, and I know people say that all the time. I'm a little odd. I know I've got ADD and OCD and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I know I'm not like, I don't converse normally. I guess I'm a little out there, I should say. Not trying to be. That's just me, but he fits right in. He would be hard pressed to find another family that would have fit in with, in my opinion, based on how he is. I mean, he's just. He's an incredibly interesting dog. I mean, he is a riot, I have to say. Relentless. Yes, that 15% is on top of the normal Etsy fees. So 15, 6.5, 3.5, I think. I'd have to sit there and write it all down. It's 20. It's one of the highest percentages of take from your money that I can think of out there. Whatnot's fairly up there too, but it's higher than eBay that we pay. And honestly, in Etsy, and it's bothersome to me that even if it's not the item they looked at, and they buy something else, that I don't like the whole aspect of the forced aspect. I'm glad to say that eBay did the right thing, and the promoted listings aren't required. The only thing I can tell you, if you're doing promoted listings, my guess is they're going to keep increasing that percentage that you're required to do as the bare bones minimum. They doubled it. I know it's only 1%, up to 2 now, but maybe it'll be 5 next year or in 2 years. It all adds up, and you got to carefully think about it, because again, it's on taxes, it's on the shipping costs too. Part of that, I know people hate that. They say, "How dare they? How can they do that?" It's in the user agreement. It's in the agreement. You've acknowledged that you're okay with it. I personally don't have the issue with them doing it on the taxes, and I'm going to say why. Because we sold enough where I had to have an accountant file and do all the stuff for us, and it was money out the window. I pay far less in them taking the fees out of the ones that have sales tax in it than I had to pay to an accountant to track all the ones we had going. And it wasn't just going to one state. Once you hit a certain amount, we were going to have to pay extra money here and extra money there. So I'd have to have them handle stuff in multiple states. It wasn't worth it. So honestly, if they're going to handle it, I cut off the service and I don't pay my accountant for it anymore, and I actually save a little bit of money, even though they take the percentage up, because again, I figure that into my profit margin. Everything that's in there, it's figured into it. That's why with Etsy, if you don't know what's going to happen, or you're running on slim margins, 10-15%, a 10% profit margin, and you're paying 15% to Etsy, you just lost 5%. You sold something for a loss, and I would never do that. If I'm only going to make 10 or 15%, I probably wouldn't list the item, truthfully. It's just, unless it's like $1,000 item, it might be worth it in that case. But your risk factor, again, back to risk, that's a gamble. If you get screwed or they send you back the wrong item, you can't prove it, eBay doesn't side with you, they side with the buyer, and I know people have personally been out thousands of dollars on eBay. You know, they fell for this or that, or they did something, they didn't follow a step, you know, and that's the case on that. And everything's a risk factor in this industry. You know, if you're selling, and again, I'm no way trying to pick on clothing sellers or household sellers at all, because I still sell some of that stuff. You know, I really love leather jackets. I got a very large collection of leather jackets. I still do buy them. I still will sell them. In some shirts, I do love concert shirts. But anyway, with clothing, if you're selling name brand clothing, my personal opinion, and I don't wish this upon anybody at all in any way, shape, or form, is that some of the bigger name companies are going to start trying to pull Veros and stuff when they realize that they can control the profits of their items. They can monopolize in anything. And as a lot of you know, that there's new items added to that Vero list all the time. You know, somebody's always pointing out a YouTuber or somebody is putting out a video saying this company's shutting sellers down and that and this. And I don't try to sell anything that could be shut down these days. Again, it could happen with some antiques very rarely, but, you know, I try to stay away from anything risk factor wise that could get me a ding. You know, and again, if you're cross-listing, you know, syncing and all that stuff, and you get dinged from a specific company on one site, you're going to probably get dinged on all the sites you're selling that exact same item on. That's happened to us. I was dinged on 3 different sites by the Richard Pryor's estate. So there's risk factors. You may not want to cross-list certain items. You know, you can list directly on sites. You could use Shopify. Again, it doesn't matter which third party as long as it's syncing between eBay and Shopify. But Shopify, you can turn off the channel of some of your items so the item won't show up on certain sites. And that's a good plus. Plus, it's a landing pad and a sync pad, so it'll sync everything for you in one single location. You sync from Shopify versus going to eBay and doing anything. You do everything from Shopify after that point would be the best bet on it. But yeah, it's their version of promoted listings, but you can't turn it off if you make so much money. That's the biggest gist on that. Yeah, Marty's pretty much straight on there. Yes, it's like 20. It's what's 21, 22, 23, 23% total on those sales that have that fee on it. I would say somewhere in that range. I'm just throwing it in my head real quick, but that's got to be pretty darn close. Ralph Funk, how are you doing this evening? I was wondering about HIP as well. If you end and sell similar, does the sync work now? It takes time to catch up. That's what I would say, because they sync like at the end of the night. I'll put it this way. The only time I've seen an issue, and again, this is a while ago, a year and a half or so ago, was the worst I have seen is it took all night for it to catch back up. If you don't do a lot, it's probably fairly quick. But I've done 10, 15,000 end and sell similar in the very same sitting, you know, one day straight through from start to finish. We've done that many. And it took a little while last time I looked. I don't look. Worst case scenario, it takes a day to catch up, and I don't care anymore. It doesn't hurt anything on my behalf, because there's still always, you know, 10,000 listings on the site, 15,000 with us. Again, I got quantity. It's not everybody's bag, so it may not be your bag on that. It may not work well for you. I don't know. I personally, it's always right where it's supposed to be. I ended and sold similar today. I sold on the site, and my numbers were give or take 5 or 6, I would say, difference between eBay and HIP at that time. I don't know. Maybe we sold some. I didn't even go look back because the numbers were so close. I wasn't worried. You know, I know nothing's lost or anything else like that with HIP in general. I know people who sell, you know, a lot of money on HIP. You know, not just HIP postcard, but on HIP stamp and things like that. So it's easy. It's simple, and you know, it's just free money, I guess. I don't have to worry. There's no learning curve with HIP in my book. You know, because it just pulls over what you already got the knowledge of and only those specific items. So to me, there's no learning curve on it. It took me 5 whole minutes to figure out what I was going to do with HIP and where everything was at, to be honest with you. Because it's all on the main landing pad that I have set up. You know, I've got it saved as you know, I just click a button and I go right to my store page, and I can do anything from that page. Email's right there. It's just got my tabs across the top of it, and that's my landing page. So every time I go to HIP, I'm looking at it. It shows instantly see my sales on there. I can instantly see what I need to leave feedback for, and so on and so on. When I ship on HIP, I always do feedback immediately. I know if they on HIP too. I'll give you another one on HIP. If They don't leave feedback. What's it, 45 days? HIP automatically leaves good feedback for you too. So I've got hundreds of feedback on HIP, to be honest with you. So even if they don't leave you feedback, you always get it. So you build up, if you start to get sales, you're going to build up a good rapport with them, and the customers are going to see you got good feedback. And most people, if they see you got 100%, it's, hundreds of feedbacks on HIP, they're not going to center in and look at what the feedbacks are to know whether they're auto or not, but it shows at least that there's nobody having a problem with your account on there. I wish eBay did that. If they didn't leave feedback after a certain time, if they don't complain, it's marked as good feedback. And it does tell you it's automatically left after so many days on your feedback, but that's fine. I would rather have them do that on eBay, truthfully. It would help you get a better standing in my book based on, 10 feedbacks versus, 300 because they auto, left them is a different story. That's a big difference. Let's see where we at. Josh Gald, eBay is going. Yeah, I was going to talk about that too. I'll have a video probably on that as well, because I'm a numbers guy, and I look at quarterly results every single quarter for like 7 different companies every single quarter. At the end of the year, I look at way more than that. If something's going on, I look at a lot more quarterly reports. I watch the home market every week. Every week I look at home prices in our local area, and then I compare and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's just you need to know a lot of stuff if you want to be competitive in here. If the least you know, the worse you can do in this industry, because if you're not figuring it out, your competitors surely are. Just like playing around with listings and playing around with, end and sell similar and this and that, and, listing and changing up stuff and your titles and stuff. The better you get at it, the more you'll be set apart from everybody else who's not doing all that extra effort to do it, is what I would say. Before we go any farther, let's talk about results from some of the tests. Not just me, but quite a few other people I've been talking to have. Now, in the past, real recently in the past, we were trying to flip our entire store 2 and 3 times. Well, I don't know if eBay has stopped it or sales have slowed down because of other outside issues, or if eBay knows people are doing it, so they're trying to stop it because quantity or something. But we've now reverted back down to only flipping the store once a month and doing less at a time and doing other activities at the same time. We're trying to catch up and get rid of all of our recommended item specifics. And what I find, I can swear to you that this is happening when I do all this. We do a whole bunch of stuff on our store every day these days. End and sell similar. Sales and markdown. Item specifics filling in. Updating old photos. Updating old listings. Changing prices up. Changing prices down on certain listings. Going in and tweaking. I've changed categories for many items on a daily basis, which all creates action and activity on your account. As far as I can see, in every test I've ever done in the last year and a half on just this kind of stuff, since the fiasco of a year and or whatever ago, and that what that does is all that activity seems to draw more people to my store every time I massive do this. And again, while I'm doing that, we're still listing new items on top of it. It doesn't have to be a ton of new. It doesn't have to be a ton of this, a ton of that. But if you add all that activity up in one store, it's hundreds of things going on in our account. Thousands of them if we're doing end and sell similar at that day. We do it every other day, as well as price changes, 500 at a time. So there's thousands of listings that are getting a instant, like a slight refresh or activity on them. And that seems to do far better for us now than doing our store flipping and trying to flip it as many times as we can. Again, I'm going with this for a little while to see what happens, because we tested it and it was working great. And then starting the beginning of this month, when the update started, things seemed to slack off from doing that. And I was putting a lot of time, so I'm like, well, maybe they've again changed something, or they're trying to stop us from being able to do this so that we'll be forced to pay for promoted listings. I wouldn't put it past them. So I wanted to try something else out. So my book, my opinion, my results show to me, again, I can't say this is going to be you, but it might be worth checking out. But for me, I'm going to keep doing this as of right now until something else changes. I adapt, I move on, I figure out what works, what doesn't work, and I go with that. So as of right now, this is our method for the next 4 weeks or so going forward. We've done it for 4, so I want to see where we're going with this. Again, I've got a baseline. I can check listings we're not doing this to or site-wise and compare them to the ones we have done it. The more action you have in your account, the more you will get out of it as far as I can see. So I bomb out from the minute I'm up and we're doing something, or the wife's doing something. She's probably doing something up there now, or one of the kids or somebody else. So there's always activity on the account. A comment comes in or a question comes in on eBay. It's answered right away. Combine notices answered right away. Invoices sent out right away. Even if they don't ask, if somebody buys 2 items, we flag them and instantly send out a combined invoice, even if they're shopping still, just so if they change their mind or they want to check out or something, it's always ready to go. I mean, any of that stuff. Pull out items unless it's some stupid question that's obviously, we don't answer every question. If it's related to like, hey, will you split this up? Will you cut down shipping? I don't mess with any people asking me to do something that's not in my policy or that's stated in there for stuff like that. It's usually people from out of the country wanting me to ship it in an envelope versus first class international. Again, you can't ship merchandise out of this country without declaring it with the import-export form attached or shipping it through eBay's first class international or any first class international option on any site. So don't get caught doing it, because at some point I wouldn't doubt they're going to start coming in, and they can look at years of you doing this. So I don't screw around. I try to do always the right, legit way. Again, it's risk. Are you going to gamble with what you do with your business? I don't take a chance. I mean, I try to feel out everything ahead of time. We pass on stuff just because there might be a risk of this or a risk of that. I don't do electronics anymore. I know there was some good money to be made, but somebody we know personally lost $3,000, and we reassessed it, and they got bad feedback, even though they were. Anyway, long story short, I don't risk in it. Clothing wise, I've stopped it. I don't list a whole bunch of different types of jewelry these days either, just because of Vero and stuff. Chanel is one of the worst ones sometimes too. You just have to watch out on stuff like that. I'm trying to keep away from name brands that are active and live today. Again, because those are risk factors in my book. Anything that the company is still active and still can hold a claim to is a risk business, in my opinion. They're the key holder to you selling even a used pair of jeans. I know the first sale doctrine and all that kind of stuff. I hear that quoted all the time. Well, that's fine. You can sell it all you want, but they can stop you from using their words and terms and selling it on a platform if the platform has an agreement with them. That's not violating your rights. You can sell it all you want. You just can't sell it on a private platform if they say you can't, which is, it's not the same as your freedom of speech or your rights. That's not taking away your rights to do something. It's only stating that private company won't allow you to do it on their side. It'd be like you running a garage sale and your neighbor saying, well, you're going to put this in your garage sale, and you don't like what they're trying to put in your garage sale. You should have say on what's on your own garage sale. It's the same thing. eBay should have a say on stuff like that. I'm not saying I agree with the companies being able to do that, but that's the world we live in these days. I've been hit with Vero, so don't get me wrong. I don't like those either for that aspect of it. But I've taken anytime we've had that happen to us, I've used that as a learning experience and a risk factor assessment. Anything that's risky, I don't mess with. Anything that could even be potentially risky. I don't like selling infant toys. I don't like selling toddler toys at all, unless they're vintage and I sell them for collectible use only. Again, anything that's a risk factor. We did some. I got approved in the certificate to sell like pesticides and stuff on Amazon. I took their class that they had. I don't know if they still do it, but I've got permits and all that stuff now. But I don't like to sell that anymore, though, because if a dog happens to die or ingest it, or an infant happens to, choke on something you sell, because it's, even if it's in a kid's category, there might have been a recall on it. And if you don't look up all that stuff, I mean, there's risk factors. I know I'm rambling. I mean, let's move on back here. Yeah, back to Josh here for a second. Yeah, I don't know I'm not estimating or going to even think about it at this point. This week's been kind of rough a little bit wise. So, it is what it is when it comes out. I anticipate it not to be good, truthfully. I anticipate it to be another loss of possibly 7 to 10% possibly, because that's about what I think the last one was, maybe higher than that. if you compare their sales to 2 years ago, that's what you need to do before the pandemic. Well, more than 2 years now, but before the pandemic, and then compare them to the midpoint of the pandemic to now. So you're going to look at three different numbers before the month or two before the pandemic started, which November, December, and then you're going to pick the midpoint. Either the ending, what would be December 20, or February, March 2021, and then the current third quarter results, end of October results. That's going to show you where they're going. The mass loss of either sellers, buyers. There'll be another loss of buyers. I can't imagine it being less than 5%, 7% probably even. Everybody's numbers are down to some extent. The site's numbers. That doesn't mean that there's sellers that aren't selling more than they had before. To be truthful with you, and again, I'm not wishing any ill harm than anybody else. We've done extremely well through the pandemic. Again, I'm not. It's not a brag. Everybody has different results. Just because the site's down doesn't mean that anybody out there, can't do very well on that site. It means the site's revenue itself isn't good, or the site's numbers aren't good. It doesn't mean that my sales numbers or your sales numbers wouldn't be good. So they're not going under. If anything, they would get bought out in my book. But they're not going under. So, you don't look at the numbers, they're doing terribly, and say, hey, well, I'm not going to make any money on the site because that's their numbers. That's not your numbers. If it's a hot item, it's going to sell regardless of what eBay's doing. Who cares what's going on with their numbers? I look at those numbers, and I recommend everybody looking at quarterly results from eBay and any other company that you're directly involved in, such as Etsy or Amazon or whatever the case may be. Look at their numbers. It's important. It means something. It'll give you an answer on where your numbers are. I mean, if the site's down 10% and you're down 10%, it's nothing you're doing in those cases. I can tell you, like with the pandemic, again, I'm not wishing any harm. We lost some relatives, we lost some friends. So I'm not at all trying to say it was a good thing in any way, shape, or form. We did do, though, well with it. It did, because more people were home, and a lot of the items that we sell in the first place are bought by people who are retired or who are expendable income. They have extra money. And when the pandemic happened for us, what happened was people were spending it instead of going out. They were sitting at home because they didn't want to be out in public and all this. So they were buying more. It was a lot of older folks buy a lot of our items. So, there's a higher risk factor. So demographics of your customers is a huge play in your business as far as I'm concerned. Knowing your customers, knowing who's buying from you, knowing the type of people that buy from you to cater to their needs. And I'm not going to give out numbers, but let's just say we've done extremely well with results from it. But I work all the time because I like this. I'm not greedy, and I don't ever care if I'm a millionaire or not. I just care that I'm comfortable and that we have a safety net if someone gets sick and someone needs some extra, that we can help our family out. That's my only concern. I'm not sitting here like Scrooge McDuck like most of the CEOs of every company in this country and every other country. That's not me. I don't care about all that. I don't dress fancy. That's not me. I don't care. I want my personal space. I want my stuff. I don't want to be bothered by a bunch of people, and I want to have enough money to make sure the health and well-being of my family is there. That's it. I never care to be a millionaire. I'm not it doesn't. Sure, if it happens, it happens. But I don't really care. I know I could make thousands of dollars a week, any day of the week almost, with promotions on my channel and stuff. I had 2 offers in the last 2 weeks to appear somewhere, and I don't do any. I'm not interested. I'm not a big crowd person these days. I just want my own. I do this for me and my family. I enjoy that. But I know I'm rambling. Let me see if I've lost my spot. Duke Royal, have you heard of Tiki Bob, one of the most valuable tiki mugs around? There's probably a couple hundred tiki mugs that sell for $3,000 to a couple $1,000, to be honest with you. I've got a tiki mug right there, and I'm not going to step off camera to get it, but I probably have 2 or 3 more sitting right near it. I like tiki mugs. I worked at Disney, so we'd go to the Tiki Lounge and stuff, and I like that kind of stuff. I got a friend who's got a bar in his basement, not like a public bar, but a bar room area, like a, I don't know. That's not really a man cave. It's well done. I mean, I don't know, but anyway, the point is that these tiki stuff everywhere. There's a lot of tiki mugs that can go for some good money. A lot of them, especially the early vintage ones. I can't say the specific one. No, Tiki Bob. It sounds familiar, but I haven't looked at tiki mugs other than the ones I got on the shelf in a while. I don't try to buy ceramics much these days. Risk factor. My factor of risk, because they can get bumped and dinged, and some of the shelves we have, well, a lot of the shelves we have 7,000 pounds in one of them, maybe. I know a couple. We've got heavy duty shelves. The shelves you see behind me in a lot of my videos can hold around 7,000 pounds. We got double boards on them too, but you got to be careful. So if you moving stuff off, and when they weigh that much, the shelves can shake a little bit. And anyway, they're safe and all, but we've had them for, I don't know, 8 years now or something. Shantanu saying, how are you doing this evening? I see a questioner. That's a good question. Buying inventory on eBay, then reselling it. Anything to avoid? Most of it you should avoid. Most of it. Not all of it, but most of it. The thing with eBay, most of the time, and I do mean the vast majority of stuff you're going to think about buying in big lots, is coming from a dealer who sells those items. I would never buy from. Okay, here's a perfect example. Somebody's literally pointed this out to me last week. I'll give you a true story here. Not that any of the other ones are fake, but this is something that someone brought up to me, and I looked at the item, so I know everything I'm going to tell you is legit. They I'm totally lost my train of thought here. Okay, the postcard album. It was a postcard album. They were removable. It was just, the slide-in postcards with the four-corner holders. It was a 1915 postcard album. They wanted to buy it. They thought, oh, look at this. I look at stuff for people in my Patreon group. So they wanted it. They were interested. They were going to bid such and such amount. I'm not going to give you the number, but I looked at the album for them. They wanted to know if I could tell them what would be a decent price and all that kind of stuff. I looked at the seller's other items for sale, which they did not do before they asked me. And sure enough, they were postcard sellers. Well, I also then went and looked at items they've already sold and already ended that had been listed that weren't sold, unsold items from their page too. And what did I find? That quite a few of the postcards in that album they tried to sell and couldn't sell them. They had been up for a long time. So would I buy that album from them? No, I would not. And that's what you got to look for and avoid buying. Let's say somebody's got a collection of stills or records or something, and they're a record seller and they've got thousands of records up. I would never buy a bulk record purchase from anybody on any platform if they're a record seller. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, I sell some in bulk, and I'm not a rip-off artist. I think everybody who bought from me, I would hope, felt like they got a good deal out of it and were able to make some money even off the items. I don't care if somebody else makes money off my items. To be honest with you, probably 15, maybe even 20% of the items that I sell right now are bought by someone who's a specialized dealer in certain collectibles, niches that we sell in, that are going to turn around and resell them. The person the other day made me an offer on two cards here, and their response when I said, hey, I'd do this, they said, well, the buyer wouldn't go that high. That was their response, which I'm fine with. I don't care if somebody buys it off me and makes money off of it. I'm making what I want to make off the item. What do I care what somebody else does with it? In fact, some of my best sales, I've had people buy hundreds of items from me in one single sitting. I had one person that bought almost $5,000 in trade cards off me from San Francisco, and I've talked about that. I've showed the sale. It's even on a video in here. Bought almost $5,000 worth in one sitting. He has a business, and he uses them for... I'm not going to go into what they're doing with them, but I talked to him as I was like, oh my God, it took us a long time to pull those and bag them and everything else, but that's just part of it. It's very rare to find a lot on eBay that's not being sold by someone who knows their items. If they're a seller in the items that they're trying to sell you in a lot, or you think it's going to be a great deal, chances are they've already tried to sell it. And postcards is the perfect example, because I don't know how many... I sell the 1,000 card postcard lots on eBay. I sell 1,000 card postcard lots on eBay myself, but they're cards that aren't worth, over $10 usually, or 14.50ish these days usually, if they're not quick movers. If they're under that, 14.50 price range, usually they just get pushed in a lot. Maybe I don't sell them always on eBay. I've sold some on whatnot, but I sell lots occasionally to some folks on a personal basis, 1,000 at a time. If again, I wouldn't buy stuff like that on eBay, truthfully. You do far better on like High-Bid buying that kind of stuff, truthfully, because most of the time those are people who have a local, like a live auction or something, and they blow stuff out that way. They're not interested in messing with it. They go by volume and quantity. They do very well for themselves. They got a staff and the whole works. Most of the auction houses around here. I mean, I know some of the owners and stuff, and I've talked to them all, fairly often. So I mean, that's my look at stuff like that. I don't try to buy a fortune of stuff off eBay. I'm not saying I haven't, and I'm not saying there isn't some money to be made, but you're looking for the diamond in the rough. One of my best eBay purchases was a lot of $8 buttons that I purchased, uniform buttons, that we did like $780 back out of that $8 purchase, all because they misidentified them. They didn't know it. They weren't a button seller. That's the point. I wouldn't buy a bag of buttons or something. I've sold bag of buttons too, but I personally wouldn't do it because I don't need another 50 French artillery buttons from 1870. I've got 100 of them. It's again, I'm a different story for those. I don't buy things in niches from people who sell in the same niches as well too. So that's just me. Most of my sources come off eBay, off site. Well, probably 99% of my sources have come from the vast 99% plus of my items come from somewhere else, because the deals are always better. If I'm buying from another dealer, they already know what they expect. They already know this. They already know that. It's extremely rare to get a good deal from someone else. Again, the best deals are ones that they don't know, that they misidentify if you're buying something off eBay. That's it. That's the best way to do it, is to get the sales from items off eBay. It honestly is. And the best deals out there are ones from local vendors in almost every case around here. And I can't say that's for everybody, but that's my experience with this. You'll run into somebody, they'll have something at a flea market, you'll ask me if they got more, and that's usually how I get the hookups with stuff. Or hand out cards, or have a finder's fee offer. So, hey, you find this, I'll give you finder's fee if I buy it, and if it's over such and such, that's usually does the best trick for getting merchandise. Run some cheap ads in your local papers and stuff like that, again. Ryan Brunet 7. Ryan and Morty, huh? If you make a sale and people ask for combined shipping, or if it's more overseas, how do you add or subtract from the sale? If they're going through, let's put it this way. If they're going through the the international shipping, like global shipping, the new option or any of that, you can't combine on the old global shipping program. If they're buying international, and let's say a person bought one card from me, a postcard. We're talking about postcards for a minute. So a person bought a postcard from me, paid for it. They realize an hour later that there's another postcard, or they don't realize it's me, and buy another postcard and pay for it as well on two separate ordeals right there. You can just, at the end of the day, go ahead and refund the difference and do one receipt and just drop the link or the the tracking number to the other listing, and it instantly marks it as shipped and ties it to that same one. You would want to change the declaration page and add the value in, or add the extra item if you're able to do it. You may not be able to do it from eBay. You may have to go to Pirate Ship or something like that, just FYI, which is perfectly fine to do as well from eBay. So those are the options. If it's a U.S. order, it's super, super easy. I just refund them. When I'm shipping it, I keep the 30 cent fee per purchase to cover any incidental costs and fees from eBay. Because as far as I saw last time I looked, eBay was still, even though I heard they weren't going to, I still saw 30 cents removed from my listing. So anyway, if it's that kind of thing, I keep the 30 cents. If it's an international sale, I go and check out what the international fee was for that, and I keep the percentage of it for the refunded amount. I'm not ripping somebody off. I'm just covering my expenses because of how they paid for it. All the rest of the money is refunded to them. So if someone buys an item here in the U.S., everything but 30 cents, and again, is paid separately. Paid separately is what I do. Now, if they bought 2 items through their cart, again, totally different story now. They're going to have the fees, only a one-time processing fee because they were all paid together at one single processing time. And then I'll, again, just refund the difference on it, and everything will show up on any form. So if you had insurance or anything else, it's all on there anyway. So that's the way I do it. I don't cancel orders. I don't do anything else like that. But I'll tell you what saves me from 95% of the time even having to deal with that is I do not require immediate payment on any of my items whatsoever on anything I sell on eBay. 30,000 items and no one has to pay immediately on anything. And that 95% of the time saves me from ever having to worry about any adding up or anything else like that. Now, I know people are going to say, well, they can just put in their cart. Why don't you use the cart feature? It'll automatically do this, it'll automatically do that. Most of my items are sold through offers. If they close and purchase the items through the cart, it does not accept the item at the offer price. It only accepts it at the full purchase price because the cart does not know what the offer price is at all. I never use the cart. And on top of that, when I do set up the hey, 10 cents extra or 25 cents extra for the next one, the numbers never match, and my shipping costs or the amount they collect is always off. Always. It's never been right. I don't get it. And I know how it works. I understand how the process works. It just never works correctly. Again, I can't see someone else's cart, and so many people think that I can see their cart and can combine or do this or do that. I can't do that. Again, you can set up the pre-set up 25 cents extra, and all. It never works for us. We've had a glitch on that forever. I just gave up on arguing with eBay and trying to get them to fix it. They were clueless, I guess. But anyway, those are how to combine. Usually, again, all I got to do is wait till they purchase the items and just combine all of them at the end of it, because again, they're not paying in advance. They're not paying for the item ahead of time. I turned off the option where they're forced to put in payment information when they make an offer, as well as when they buy something, they don't have to pay for it. All that stuff's turned off. And I actually get more sales than most of my competitors because I do that. Because someone can shop for a month. I've got people that shop over an entire month, and at the end of the month, I combine them all together. The minute it goes over 30 days, though, any listing that they didn't pay for and you didn't combine after 30 days can't be combined that way. You would have to add it in as an add-on for extras into your invoice when you send it out, because after 30 days, you can't combine anything outside of the 30-day mark. I learned that the hard way years ago. But that's their deadline, their mark as to when you can combine. So I have a 30-day. I send a notice out, and we keep track of it. And I haven't had a mix-up in years doing it that way. I don't get unpaid items almost never these days. I could probably count on one hand how many we've had in the last 2 years. Maybe not even that many. Probably 2 or 3, I guess. I don't even know if we have one this year yet, at least on eBay. So the people that buy from me, again, I know the demographics of the people. It's not somebody who may not have much. It's not a child that's buying. It's a collector who's into a niche usually. So everybody's readily, and I don't care if they take a week to pay. I could care less. I don't need the money right now. I'd rather have it already in hand and just wait for it. And I know people say, well, what if they don't pay? Then the item's unavailable for sale. Well, if it's good enough to sell now, it's going to sell later on. I don't do, I have zero quantity set on my listings. So at the end of 7 days, if that person doesn't, never paid for it or something, I just go in there and change the quantity from 0 back to 1. My listing never ended. It's still active. So it's instantly back there with the quantity. Those same watchers are still there. And it will tell them when the second I put that back up that seller added quantity or something like that. Or the minute it runs on sale again, they're going to see the notice. So it's a no-brainer with that. That's how I handle all of those. So we're right at the mark here. I tried not to go over that hour and a half mark. I said I wouldn't even do that today, but I get to yap, and I know I do. Let me just, Kelly's got, that's the next one down here. Okay, so within a day is fine. In quarter 1, I had 20K on eBay, but it would take 2 to 3 weeks to resync, which is why I left. I'm up to 35,000 now, so a day isn't terrible. The download sales fell, yes, that makes sense. Yeah, that works fine. You can do it any day you want. Literally, though, I don't, unless we're selling a bunch all at the same time, and if it's trickling through the day, I just, when I go to mail them out for HIP, I just instantly just cut and paste the title of the item from HIP and just pop it into my listing. There's always a listing tab opened up here, no matter where I'm at in this building. So I'll just change the quantity to 0. That's all I do. I don't end it. I don't have to do any of that. I've got a 0 quantity option set in the site preferences or sellers. I don't remember where it's at now. I'll find it instantly, but I don't remember what the title is. But anyway, so my listings never end. So again, I can just instantly change it to 0 as opposed to having to click end. It takes like 2 seconds. You don't even have to click in on the listing. You can just do it literally from your main listings tab in the hub, which is a good feature. I use that all the time. It's just like Amazon. Like on Amazon, if I want to change quantity, I'm just changing the quantity. I don't have to look at the listing at all. I can do it from the main listings, from my main listings page on Amazon. It's just that easy, I guess. Again, Kelly, those are my results. I can tell you right for sure. Last time I did 10,000, the next day everything was fine. We do 3,000 to say 4,000 or 5,000 on average at the most, right this second, on end and sell similar on eBay. Every 2 days basically now. And I don't, the numbers are right up there in the 18,000 range. Again, I don't care if a few hundred listings are having issues and might take a couple days, but I have not had any weeks on any of them. It's literally, and I check because I'm on HIP probably 3-4 times a day, honestly. Because I want to make sure, I check everything, and I make sure when the offers come in, I handle them right away and all this stuff. Because if you don't handle the offers right away, somebody else may have the same thing, and they may find that before you get back with them. That's why I always handle all that stuff right away. We're going to end it off on here. I know I keep rambling, but what I was going to say is I'm going to go into Patreon and try to get to some of the comments. I don't know if I'll get to them all. The only thing left is community tab, and some of them I still have not heard back from a couple of folks, which I did ask for a few more, some more data. One more thing on community tab on Patreon as well. If I don't get back to you, hang on, one of my kids, sorry. If I don't get back to you for some odd reason, I answer like 100 emails sometimes in one sitting. It's possible I missed something. I missed somebody the other day, and I felt really bad about it. It's not something I like to do, but I missed a response they had. So if for any reason I don't get back with you in a few days, just drop me an email. Or if you just want to email me first and don't even worry about posting it, that's fine too. Just FYI, I just want to put that out there because I'm very readily wanting to get to everybody. Time-wise, this week has been horrid on time for my reselling business. It's really been bad. As I said, this is the first video of any kind I've had up since Sunday here on there. My numbers are still solid, believe it or not. I can't believe I didn't lose any daily views. We've got some videos that have been routinely getting a lot of views, for months on end now. So I guess it's just finally built up to a number because of how many subscribers we got. I guess, I don't know. It's just things have been going well on YouTube, believe it or not. I'm surprised. Again, I appreciate all the kind support. I wish I could express how I feel inside sometimes on just all the people who are, so kind and gracious with the support and comments and prayers and thoughts and all that. It's always nice to, see that anyway. Not necessarily, but, I do appreciate it greatly. Some of the comments people make are extremely touching. I mean, they're really heartfelt, and you can tell by the way the people write to me and stuff. And I appreciate that very much. I do honestly try to help people. I try to go out of my way, especially for my patrons and stuff too, because they really sometimes make my day. Some of the comments that some folks leave and hit me up with stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna let it go with that. I do appreciate, as I said, everybody coming on. I'm going to hit at least some of the community tab. I'll get to everything else left on the community tab early in the morning tomorrow. I'm up at 5:45 in the morning tomorrow to take care of something, and I'll be back by probably 7:05, 7:10, and I'll be hitting it up probably at that point. I'll be up real late too, so I'm not going to get much sleep tonight, but that's fine. Again, if anybody wants to check out my membership page here on YouTube, I do have a YouTube membership page, and I also have my Patreon page as well. More content and more accessibility to me and questions, obviously, on Patreon, though. But anyway, I do thank you all for coming on. If I didn't say it in the last 30 or 40 minutes, please slam that thumbs up button. Show some love for the channel. Sorry if I didn't get to your comments. I know I ramble a lot, but that's just me. I can't fix it. I get in my little yap session, and I just keep going with it. But anyway, I let you go. Appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great evening.